But how was your commute? What happened then?
Well, one of the lads I travel with, because the Yankees...
Yeah, home opener on it today.
And I'm like, fucking you were talking to him and finding out the score and, oh my God, you're from England. It's not cricket. And I went, exactly. Anyway, one of the lads who I came on, he said...
You hamming it up as well at that point, no? Are you proper English? Oh, yeah. I'm English.
Yeah. So, just winding him up, because apparently in the Daily Mail, it said the national anthem was sang and the fans hated it. And they all said, no, she was great. And I was, not according to Dylan. So I'm showing all the people in the fucking subway this article in the Daily Mail. And he says, oh, get off here. And it was like Rockefeller. And I thought, I'll get on the train. And I saw this one said 42 and Brian. I'm like, that kind of sounds perfect. Oh, no. Got on it and I thought, got off it and I'm thinking, I know where I am at Bryant Park. Now I've got to walk
all the way over
8 blocks over to the authority. So, but it's good now because what I do, I've got that app on my phone. So to zone 3, it's 275. To zone 2, it's 175. So, and senior citizen. So I just put it on my phone and just fucking 175.
There's no way they believe in you're a senior citizen with your hair all gelled up and your little goatee and all the rest of it.
I walk on.
You're like Benjamin Button. Welcome to the Crossing the Pond podcast, hosted by me, Gary Adair, where each week our guests will recount their own experiences of resilience and transformation, whether it's moving to a new country, tackling health challenges, changing careers, or breaking through personal barriers. This week's guest has recently begun a new chapter of his life in the US after a coaching and playing career in professional football that spanned from the mid-80s to the present day and covered 4 continents. Dylan Kerr gives us insight into the ups and downs of his career, from club initiations in South Africa to major successes during his more notable spells at Leeds United, Reading and Kilmarnock. His journey is a testament to the importance of building and nurturing relationships, as well as being ready to seize the opportunities that come your way. I appreciate this.
It's
been a while coming.
I'm glad we're doing it.
All right, so born in Malta, but grew up in Donny. Is that right? In Doncaster?
Mexborough, which is part of Doncaster, where's the Donny postcode.
Right.
We actually live in between Rotherham, Doncaster, Barnsley and Sheffield. So we're kind of like very, very central to 4 big cities.
Is that like the Yorkshire version of the Bermuda Triangle?
Well, kind of. I mean, it's a pit village. Mexborough had a lot of coal mines, which where my dad worked after he left the Navy. Yeah.
Were you destined to get down the pit as a kid? Like, was that the way to go? Was that like one of those things where everyone was going, or was football on the forefront?
Well, all the family were pitmen. My aunties, my uncles, my granddad, my great-granddad, my dad. They all went down the pit. They all were miners. But my dad used to be what we call a pub footballer. So he used to play Saturday afternoons for Swinton Athletic, and he used to play on a Sunday for Main Street Miners Welfare. For me as a kid, that was the hook. I used to go with my dad every single football match from the age of 5 years old. I think I can remember going to watch my dad, and I loved it. Yeah. Sunday pub football, 10 o'clock in the morning, they'd play, kick off. 12 o'clock they'd be in the pub. I started drinking Guinness at 6 years old. I'd have half a Guinness, bottled Guinness, the real stuff. My dad would drink with the lads. They'd play bingo. There'd be raffle prizes, and then we'd go home and we'd have Sunday lunch.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to be, a footballer. All the way through school is to be a footballer. I didn't want anything else. I just loved it. And it wasn't on the professional side. It was just that I just loved playing football. Whenever I could play football, I would do it. When I was 11, there were a cup game that my dad's team were playing for. They needed, the referee said you had to have a substitute. Now, I remember back in the day, one substitute.
One sub, yeah.
So they got me the full kit on. I was 11 years old.
How big?
Oh, it buried me. It was like, it was like a night shirt. It was down to my ankles. But they said to me, look, I had to stand on the sidelines as a sub. But it was great because in them days, you got a rub man, who'd get the liniment oil. It was in his 70s and 80s, and he became a very, very important, integral part of me progressing to Sheffield Wednesday.
So when did you first go to Wednesday?
There was three teams in our area: Rockingham, Edlington White Stars, and Mexborough Athletic. Now, Rockingham were the team. They had all the best players. Edlington White Stars, all the best players. And Mexborough Athletic were all the ones that couldn't get in the team.
Right.
So, and I was one of them players that even though I knew I was good enough, I believed in what I was doing at school and playing Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons, Sunday mornings, Sunday afternoons. But I was told I was not good enough. And one parent at Rockingham, I can't remember his dad's name, but his son was called Stephen Ricks. Great little winger. Steve Coppell, Gordon Hill type winger back in the day. I said to him, "Can I come and play?" He says, "Son, you'll never ever play for this team. You're not good enough." But it wasn't just from his point. It was from like Doncaster schoolboys, South Yorkshire schoolboys, Yorkshire schoolboys. I was always on the outside. I couldn't get in. Don't get me wrong. There were some good players. There were some better players. But I just had this knack that I could score goals as an attacking midfielder. And when this parent said to me that, it just like biggest kick in the nuts you could ever imagine. And I continued playing with Mexborough Athletic till I was 15. And one day, my dad took over Swinton Athletic, and my dad phoned at home, the old style telephones with the dial.
Yeah.
And he said, "Look, I need you to come and play for me on Saturday afternoon." And I was 16, and that's when you get into the drink, and then you get into the girls.
Yeah. Distracted all over the place.
Dad, I said, I'm going out with the lads. I think we're going to watch Barnsley. My dad said, "Look, I need you to come and play." So I got my stuff, went up and played the game. I think we won 4-1, and I scored 3 goals. And as I came off the pitch, the guy that gave me a rub when I was 11 years old was still at the club. I mean, he must have been in his 80s. And he was with a gentleman who was a former Sheffield Wednesday scout for Jack Charlton. And he said, "Look, I've been watching you. I think you've got a good thing about you. I think you can go and have a trial in pre-season for Sheffield Wednesday." And I was like, "Wow, brilliant!" Actually, Wilford, the guy that was a rub man, he'd set it up. So he brought this old guy down to have a look at me.
Yeah.
And obviously, I didn't know, which is a good thing.
Yeah, because
there was no pressure. It was just one of those games that it just worked. And anyway, so I got a letter from Sheffield Wednesday inviting me down for pre-season. Then 2 weeks before pre-season started, Jack Charlton resigned and stayed the Republic of Ireland.
So who comes in?
Howard Wilkinson.
Okay.
So I'm thinking...
What year is this? 83?
83. So 2 weeks before, when I found out that Jack had resigned and gone to the Republic of Ireland, then I questioned if the trial was still going to be okay. And thank God it were.
Yeah.
So I went to train at Sheffield Wednesday, got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, got ready, had my breakfast, got the bus at 6 o'clock, dropped me off at the train station at 6:20, got the train from Mexborough to Sheffield, got to Sheffield at 7:30, made sure I got the bus to Hillsborough, and I walked into Hillsborough, and my first thing I did, I walked down the tunnel, and just like, wow, 16 years old, just been given this opportunity. And it started from there, and I had a 6 week trial.
First team. Were you the first, or you were the youngsters?
No, it was
reserves or whatever.
No, it was everybody together. The youngsters trained with the first team. Obviously, when there were practical sessions, the kids went on one field, and then
Who's around that team then? Mid-80s, Sheffield Wednesday?
Oh, well, when he joined, he'd got rid of a few players. He signed Ian Esford from Blackpool, who was the England under-21 goalkeeper. There was Mel Sterland, who went on to play for Leeds and Rangers. Mick Lyons, who was an Everton legend. Mark Smith, who's local from Sheffield. And there was Ian Bailey, former Middlesbrough player. He was there. And then there was Gary Shelton. There was Gary Megson. Chrissy Morris, who went on to play at Celtic, did really, really well.
Were you doing all right? Were you holding your own?
One of the things I was good at was running.
Right.
And Howard, the gaffer, loved long distance.
Yeah.
Long distance. Pre-season, 3 days a week, we did 1.5 hours running. And it was like uphills, in the forest, round reservoirs, in the countryside. He took us to some of the most amazing places, but we would run for 90 minutes. And after 45 minutes, we stopped for 10 minutes, take it as an half time, and then we'd catch on. But at the end of every run, there was like a mile and a half to the cars, and everybody would meet. Everybody would catch up. All the players, the slow ones, the goalkeepers.
Goalies.
They would they would catch everybody up, and then he said, right, last run, straight to the car. And Chrissy Morris was the best runner at the club, and I left him for dead. That got me my contract.
Yeah.
After the trial, I went and knocked on the gaffer's door, and they offered me a 1-year YTS, Youth Training Scheme contract, which was £25 a week, and I think I got £3.50 travel allowance, and I signed a 1-year apprentice deal. And
what was that like for you? Nice one.
Well,
straight back to Mexborough.
Straight back to Mr. Rix's house, knocked on the door, gave him my apprentice contract, and left.
Nice.
That was it. Didn't say a word. Just gave him my contract and left. Chapped on the door, gave him the contract, and walked away.
This is you now, right? You're on the pathway now to the next, goodness knows how many years as a professional footballer and coach. So how long did you stay at Sheffield Wednesday? Did you just do that YTS, or did you get another contract after that?
So I went there as a central midfielder. You're on a different level then, Gary. You're on a different level. And I thought, as a 16-year-old, when I was an apprentice, I'd got to sign a pro contract.
Right.
But I'd only got a year. Everybody else had got 2 years, but I'd got a year. And I was doing really, really well in the youth team, in the reserve team, which was the Central League back in the day. And even though I was doing well, I wasn't doing as well as I should have been doing. And 3 months before my contract was up, I chapped on the gaffer's door and I said, look, how's things going? And he said, look, we're not going to sign you. We're not going to offer you anything as a midfielder. We don't think you're a midfielder. But what we do think is, because of your energy, because of the way you can work, your work ethic, and your left foot, we're going to try and put you at left back. So you've got the next 6 weeks
to figure it out,
to become a left back. And no word of a lie, Gary. Every day I was on the training field, I was asking Mel Sterling, I was asking Ian Bailey, I was asking everybody to help me. And because of my character and because of the way that people liked what I was doing around the club, I made a fuss of players. I always wanted to be involved with it. I was a nightmare for people. I was always there. But it was a good thing, because I had to do my jobs, and I did my jobs well, and I cleaned my boots well. There was not a scuff on them. They were always, every day, rain, wind, shine, those boots were sparkling. And the players helped me, and especially Mark Smith, who was a centre half with a great left foot, Mel Sterling, brilliant, Ian Bailey, brilliant. They helped me. And after 6 weeks, Gaffer called me in and he said, look, well done. You've earned this year's pro contract. We're going to offer you a year, £60 a week. I think £12.50 travel allowance. It was like a dream come true. I'd wanted to be a professional footballer since the age of 5, and I did it the hard way. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. If I wasn't able to run, I don't think Howard would have,
took the chance.
Give me the opportunity. And then it went wrong.
Have you gone Charlie Big Spuds at that point? Like,
I've signed my pro contract, end of the season. I went on holiday with my family, came home ready for pre-season, and I thought I'd made it. I'd only got a year, but I thought I was a pro footballer forever. I thought, this is it now, I've done it. I did things as a 17-year-old that not many people in the world would do. And I was going out with the professionals. I was basically, don't get me wrong, I was still working hard. I was still doing my football thing, but my social life was just like amazing. I was going to pop concerts at Sheffield City Hall. I was meeting celebrities. I was going out clubbing with the football players. I was
stretching that £60 a week, by the way.
I was honestly,
walking to Sheffield Wednesday, spending £12.50.
I was going out with the players, so I didn't pay a penny.
Yeah, true.
And there was 2 nightclubs, Josephine's and Sinatra's, that we would be in there on a Tuesday night because we were off on Wednesday. We'd be in there on Saturday night because we were off on Sunday. And I got trapped into this make-believe life that I was never, ever going to not be a professional footballer. Howard Wilkinson signed Nigel Worthington, and he'd let Ian Bailey go. He'd let a lot of ex-Sheffield players go and brought his own staff in, his own players in. I was kind of on the cusp of getting into the first team, but Nigel was doing so well, never got injured, never got suspended, never anything. Then he got injured. And I remember it was playing Liverpool away, and everybody was like, yes, you're going to get a chance now. You're going to get a chance. And then the next day he signed John Ryan, who used to play at Newcastle United. So that dream had gone. But I didn't think I was doing bad on the field, but again, I'd got entrapped into this. I wanted to be part of the gang. I wanted to be part.
Were you
of the
naive to think that it wouldn't get back as well?
Very, very, because when my contract was up,
you knew about it.
Howard knew everything about it. About it. Howard, pulled me in, and honestly, it was like the biggest disaster I could ever imagine when he gave me my release papers, and it had like kind of it never sank in at the time, but all the way home I cried, and it was a long journey home. It was the longest journey ever, and I got home and my dad was disappointed, my mum was disappointed. My mum said, if you look back, what you did. I was doing things that no 17-year-old wouldn't. I was going out with the Human League. I was going out with ABC. I was going out with Evan 17. I was going with all the Sheffield local bands. You can't imagine what I was doing. It's ridiculous as a 17-year-old.
So then, all right. So it doesn't work out. I mean, it comes full circle with Howard Wilkinson, doesn't it? We'll get to that in a bit. But so this one's about bonkers. You're 17 and you're doing things. You said then about you're doing things that a 17-year-old would never do. Well, now all of a sudden you end up in South Africa. How does that come about?
Well,
after Sheffield,
obviously when the off season's off, I wrote 91 letters to each club. Didn't type it. It was a toss up between me.
So
and
you didn't smash people hard enough, is what
no,
you're saying?
obviously I didn't. I wasn't aggressive enough. But and they chose Julian, and that was the closest I'd been to getting a contract, and I ended up playing for Spalding United, which Mick Hennigan was Howard Wilkins's youth team coach at Sheffield Wednesday, who later became assistant manager at Leeds, and I ended up playing for Matlock Town. I had a couple of trials at Doncaster, I had a couple of trials at Rotherham, October, November, December. Life's finished for me. I didn't know what to do, didn't know what I was going to do.
Right.
I just wanted to still be a footballer. And I got a phone call from Mick Hennigan. Mick said, would you like to go to South Africa? And I went, are you serious? He went, yep. I said, well, can I have a week to think about it? He said, no, I need to know tomorrow because you're flying on Tuesday. And this was like Friday or Saturday. So I need to know tomorrow, because he played in South Africa in the 60s. He was best man at the manager called Stan Laporte, who was at Arcadia Shepherds. And he became the manager, and they needed a left-sided player.
All right.
So, and this is a cracker. This is like...
You get that. So hang on. So you're set 18 now?
No, I've not turned 18. I'm still 17. I've not turned 18 because I went in January, because their season was January to November.
Right, okay.
So my mum didn't want me to go. My dad, I think my dad wanted to kill me because he got offered a job in South Africa. I thought, Zimbabwe, when we were like 12, big job. And I said, Dad, I'm not going because I don't want to go because I want to be a footballer. So my dad actually turned it down. And then he went, absolutely, now you're going to go to South Africa.
And be a footballer.
So I spoke with my mum and dad about it, and they said, look, Mum said, not a chance, because we didn't know much about it, didn't know much about Africa. And I phoned Michael up the next day. I said, yeah, I'm going to go. What there was offering, it was like 50 quid a week in South African money. It was a 3-bedroom house with a pool, with a maid, and you got a car. It was like a no-brainer for me. And when I said, yes, I'm going to go, the following day there was an incident. Well, there was a news at 10, and Orlando Pirates and Kaiser Chiefs were playing. And I'm watching the news with my mum. And this guy, who was a big guy, huge, he was the chairman, and the fans came up and stabbed him 87 times.
On the pitch?
On the field.
So you've just said,
yeah. Yeah, I've just said yes.
Have you told
my mum?
You've told your ma you're going?
Yeah.
And then you're watching this on the telly?
We're watching, and she says, you're not going there.
No chance.
He only survived, Gary, because...
Oh, he survived?
He survived. He survived because he was massive. He was huge. He was a big, strong African man. He was huge, and he got stabbed 87 times, and he survived. Anyway, I got to the airport, my mum in tears. Obviously, I'm 18, going to another country, going a long, long way away. Her wedding ring, which I've still got to this day, she gave me that at 18 at the airport, and it's never been off my finger. And I went there, landed, met an Irish guy called Sammy Troughton at the airport. Good-looking guy.
Can't go anywhere, can you? Irish lads everywhere.
Good-looking guy, long hair. Played at Wolves. The house was amazing. The maid was there 3 days a week. I had an Audi A4 Sport convertible. which I was driving. We had a swimming pool. It was great, but I missed home. I missed home. Apart from training on a Tuesday and Thursday, I would sit in my house and I would write letter after letter after letter to anybody.
Same thing.
Same thing. I just wrote then. And
you say you sat in your house, but was there stuff in and around the club? Like, what about the other players in the club?
They were all full-time workers. Me and Sammy.
So it's a part-time club, essentially.
Me and Sammy were the only professionals. So we were the only full-time players. So everybody else had a job. So we trained on Tuesday and Thursday. And my first training session was at the Cali Stadium. And there's these things they call Mooty men, which is kind of witch doctory.
Like voodoo-y.
Voodoo. Right, and remember those old deep baths that, old style.
Everyone's in it.
Obviously, there was no water in it this day, and they said to me, "Look, you need to take your clothes off, leave your boots on, and go and stand in that bath." And I'm like,
nothing else, full buff, like
naked as anything. And I'm like 18 years old. I'm like, what the hell's going to happen here? Anyway, this witch doctor, Mooty man as we call it, came in with 3 chickens. And he's dancing and Is he
dressed in the full gear? And
he's doing all the full regalia. And next thing he stands over the bath with these chickens and heads off and the chickens just dropping in and then they're just running everywhere. Yeah, blood's going everywhere. I mean, I am covered in blood, but it had to hit my boots. That's the reason they left my football boots on. And
it's like Carrie.
Honestly, we're like Carrie. I mean, you wouldn't think a little chicken could bleed as much as it did. And anyway, got out, got showered, and we played a cup game on the Saturday, and we were 2-0 down at half time. And I was still acclimatising. It was like 90, 100 degrees heat, and we were 2-0 down. And what I noticed with African players was they would go out onto the field before the game. They would spread stuff in the goal area or in the midfield central area. It was like dust,
right? But
I don't know what it were. I don't know what.
Voodoo again.
Yeah, it was Mooty. That's what they believe in. It brings you good luck and it's going to win you the game. And at half time, we were 2-0 down and there was a big commotion. It was sold out. There must have been about 30,000 fans, all black, because there were no white fans that go.
Yeah, because this is still apartheid, isn't it?
So there would be a couple of white people. Obviously, there was white players. We had, I think, 90% white players. We had an Indian goalkeeper. We had a great striker who was an African. But we couldn't play in our ground in the town because of an incident that happened a few years before that Kaiser Chiefs fans ran riot and smashed all the high street in. So they had to go and play in the townships. At half time, they had a Mooty man. There was a big commotion, so we went out. And this guy's running around with water and he's spraying it everywhere and he's throwing
dust,
like dust or chalk. Powder everywhere. Anyway, we won 3-2 and I scored 2 goals. And we won 3-2. And
they must have topped that Mooty man after.
By the way, Gary, honestly,
has he just gone, big massive smoke and just legged it? Yeah.
It just gone. And they chased him, eh? They chased him because they believed that he brought him, bad Mooty. And we won that game and we got to the final.
Was that every game, like?
Every game, yeah. Every game, there was something that was.
Didn't you say something once about the beach or something?
When I went back in 2009, it was still going on. I was assistant coach at Tanda Royal Zulu and Nati Lions, and one day we went to a beach, and there was one of these old metal tubs that used to, when you were kids, used to sit by the fireplace with hot water and have your bath, and I can't imagine what were in it, but it was mainly blood, guts, brains, tongue, everything you can imagine. And most of it were goat and fish and chicken. And you had to run. You had to submerge yourself in it. And this was worse than carries. I mean, you actually dunked yourself in it, and it reeked because of the heat as well. And then you had to go and run into the sea, dive into the sea, and then you cleanse yourself. But it was good Mooty. I don't believe in it. African players do believe in it. African owners believe in it. We went for a run down the beach one day with the team, and obviously because I'm a good runner, I'm taking the lead. I don't hear any voices behind me, and I'm like, turn around, and they're about 500 meters behind at the beach, and I'm like waving them on, and they're like, and I'm like, come on. So obviously I've got to jog back. So I get back there and I said, no, coach, we can't go. So they're like 10 chicken feet and chicken butts sticking out the sand. And they said, no, we can't go past this.
What's that like?
Again, Muti.
Muti boundary or something.
So they killed 10 chickens, stuck them in with the feet up and the backsides up, so the heads are buried, and they would not go past it. They would not go past.
I bet you couldn't write those letters fast enough, could you?
No,
you got another one every day. Like,
well, I said, go back to 1986. So after 6 weeks, Sammy said to me, "I'm fed up with you. We need to go out. Get dressed. We're going to go clubbing. We're going to go out." And he took me out that night, and that was it. I never looked back in South Africa after that. I enjoyed 3 years being at Arcadia. My first year, I was runner-up in the Player of the Year. But because the season finished in November and started in January, I came home.
Right.
And I phoned Howard up because he's still at Sheffield Wednesday, and I trained at Sheffield Wednesday. Brilliant. Went back the next year, Sheffield Wednesday. And then the year after that, he went to Leeds. So I phoned the gaffer. I says, "Gaffer, can I come and..."
Was he all right with you just because of the way? I mean, all right,
he loved me.
A bit of a jack the lad out of town and all that, but like he was all right with you because he knew you were at it.
He loved my attitude. He loved who I were.
Yeah.
And I had this thing around the dressing room and this thing around the players. I mean, when I was at Wednesday as an apprentice, Notts Forest played, and there were a little cubbyhole that you could sneak into, and the gaffer used to send you down there to listen to the team talks. But I was in charge of the tea, and obviously making tea, and some of the guys would pee in the tea. And I put the teapot in the dressing room, and Brian Clough came out just as he's going out for the second half. "Young man, that was a very, very, very nice cup of tea. You're doing very, very well." And I'm like, really?
Someone's had a good slash in it, like, and then
somebody,
no names.
I can't even remember now. So it wasn't me, that's for sure. It wasn't me. But that's the silly things you did as apprentices. You do stuff.
So he liked you.
Yeah.
So then that okay. So you've been at Arcadia for 3 years. You ring Howard on the third year round, and he says, "Yeah, come to Leeds and training, come or whatever. Just come and train with us. Keep yourself ticking."
John Pearson, Mel Sterling, Carl Schutt, and Andy Williams, who was at Rotherham, they were all leaving from Thorpe Wesley, which was just round the corner from me. So I phoned Mel Sterling up and said, "Look, can I get a lift? I've come in to train." Mel loved it. Me and Mel Sterling are like, he's an absolute legend. My dad used to drop me off, and I'd go to Leeds training, and I'd come back, and my dad had picked me up. It was very hard for my dad because he's working shifts, but he'd make it work for me. And Glyn Snodin was left back. Howard had just taken over, and he'd signed a kid called Mickey Whitlow. And whilst I was training there, Glyn got injured, so Mike had to play the first team, and I ended up playing reserves. This
would have been 89.
This would have been 89 with Gary Speed. Gary Speed was an 18-year-old.
So all these lads are in the reserves, and you're just there.
Yeah, I'm just there, yeah. David Batty was in and out the first team. Noel Blake, Vince Allaire were there. Mark Hazelwood was the captain. Neil Aspin, Mervyn Dane goal. Ian Baird, Bobby Davidson up front, Scotty Sellers, Gary Williams was right back, John Sheridan, maestro in midfield.
Jesus. So how long were you there for then?
I was only there for a month. I was only training there.
So at the end of that month, you must be like, did you not want to go back at that point, or were you?
Well, I was going back.
You were going back no matter what.
I'd actually agreed to join Kaiser Chiefs. I was going to leave Arcadia and join Kaiser Chiefs. And when I was playing the reserve games, I did really, really well because being in Africa, I'd learned so much about technical ability. I was doing things that you wouldn't do in English professional football, and I was kind of a different player because I was playing with lots.
And have you copped onto yourself a little bit as well, like professionally kind of thing?
I still wanted to go back into the English game. That was the dream.
Did you know that was the only thing that was holding you back, kind of just a little bit more professionalism?
Well, and I didn't think I'd be given that opportunity to go to Leeds in the first place. When I got there, again, I kind of like fitted in. I fitted in. Shez hated me. John Sheridan hated me because Howard played long ball. He wanted ball from the back to the front as fast as you can, wide, cross, and get a shot at target.
So you clipping balls in the channel, Shez is showing feet, and he's like, what the?
John Stiles, Scott Sellers, they're all... Dave Batty, my introduction to Leeds United, my first touch, Dave Batty in a little rondo twatted me and nearly broke me in half. Really broke me in half. And it was like, and Bats was just like, it didn't care.
He wasn't asked about football either, was he?
Nope. He just came to work and went on. That was him. And didn't even Don't even watch any games. And he was such a nice guy off the park, but on the park he was evil.
Yeah.
He was evil. And I think I played 4 reserve games, did really, really well. And when it was time to go back to South Africa, I went in and said, Gaffer, thank you very much. He went, brilliant. He says, anytime you're back, you're always welcome. And I said, Gaffer, what do you reckon? Have I done okay? He says, brilliant. He said, but you've got a good reputation in Africa. You're doing well in Africa. You've maybe got an opportunity that if you stay there, you can get in the national team. So, yeah, go back. And didn't bother me.
It's like, yeah, fine.
Yeah, fine.
This is me path.
Got my boots. I said my goodbyes, shook everybody's hands. We had fish and chips for lunch. Got dropped off at Thorpes. My dad picked me up. That was on the Friday. I was flying on the Tuesday. So I get a phone call from Frickley Athletic. And they said, can you come and play 50 quid in cash in your hand? And I thought, brilliant, weekend money.
Was this a mate just phoned you?
Yeah, he said, 50 quid, do you want to play? And I went, yeah, I'll come and play. We played Droylsden. We won 4-0. I scored 2 goals. And there was a newspaper in Yorkshire called The Greenan that came out at 6 o'clock.
Is that like the Pink?
Yeah, the Pink one.
We get the Pink.
You get the Pink in Lancashire. And it was The Greenan. And there was a double page spread on me scoring 2 goals. It was like, usually it was more the professional teams, but the non-league teams. But there were some cancellations. And Mick Hennigan phoned me up on Sunday morning, and his words were, what the fuck are you doing? What do you mean? He says, if you'd have got injured, you could have fucked up your chance of signing for Leeds. I went, well, I'm not signing for Leeds. We've had a change of heart. We want you to come in on Monday. We want to offer you an 18-month contract.
Bloody hell.
I phoned Kaiser Chiefs. I phoned Stan and Arcadia. All the best, no problem. My dad took me to Leeds on Monday, and I walked in the dressing room, and the biggest cheer when I said I'm staying was like, wow, from everybody. And I kind of dreamt that I was going to do this again, but I didn't expect it to be at Leeds, didn't expect it to be Howard. And I worked so hard, and I played left back. I think I was the captain after a couple of months of the reserve team with all these big players. And I got my opportunity to play Brighton and Hove Albion in the league. And I made my debut. No, I've never told this story. I wasn't in the squad on the Friday. Remember, there's only one substitute.
Yeah.
And I went out with the boys on Friday night. And I'm coming out the pub, going to the nightclub. Howard, if you see this, I do apologise. And I'm walking over the bridge. Now, the nightclub was about a mile and a half from the last pub. I wasn't drunk, but you got
a few on you, like.
I'd had a few. I could see my mum on the bridge, dressing gown, slippers. She said, get home now. Howard's going to phone you in half an hour. Now, to get home, it took me about 20 minutes to run home. So I pelted it. Shoes, trousers, bowie tie, jacket, hair like Filoki from the Human League. And I'm hairing it back home. And I get home and Howard phoned. And I'm panting. And he says, you all right? I said, yeah. So my mum's just told me you're phoning. I've been at my grandma's, looking after her because she's not well. And I've just run over, so it took me about 20 minutes. And he said, you're on the bench tomorrow. You're on the bench tomorrow. And I'm like...
Fair play to your mother.
Apparently she stood there for an hour. There was like 6 pubs within like walking distance, but she knew I was going to go to that nightclub. And she knew I'd have to go over the bridge. And she'd waited there for an hour, and it was cold. And she sat there, she was with a coat, dressing gown, slippers, and I don't even know how she got home. I think she must have got a taxi or the bus home.
She wasn't a runner like her son.
So because I could run, I just ran home. But I did that every time I went out. I always ran home.
Yeah.
I ran home, and I'll continue to do it to now.
So you've gone in, right? You've gone in 89, 90. They've stayed up in Division 2. Then they've won Division 2 in 1991. Did he just swept everyone out?
Billy Bremner's lot, he didn't want.
Why? Why was that?
They weren't his type of players.
Right.
They were all technically brilliant.
Yeah.
But Howard didn't want technically. He wanted players that
runners
could create chances. He wanted a back four that could just be a back four, goalkeeper that could be a goalkeeper, midfielders that could go box to box, wingers that could cross the ball, and strikers that could finish. Again, I always believed I was good enough, but the players in front of me, which was like Jim Beglin, came, Nigel Worthington.
Dorigo.
Tony Dorigo, who I loved. Tommy Dorigo, as we call him, because we played a game at Shelbourne and the announcer,
Got him
number
wrong.
3, Tommy Dorigo. So that stuck. None of the players call him Tony, it's always Tommy. He never got suspended, he never got injured. So I played a few games. I was always the 14th man when there were 2 subs on the bench. I was always the one that didn't make the bench. I was always in the squads. Again, I captained the reserve team.
Yeah.
We had David Rocastle come, Steve Hodge come. That Rocky came to, take over from Gordon Strachan, but Gordon Strachan was having none of that. Steve Hodge came to take over Gary McAllister, Dave Batty, Gary Speed. That wasn't going to happen. So there's a lot of players that were in that squad. I didn't play that many first team games. I couldn't get in. And I think the fact that all of us were like a unit and together, we all pushed each other. So Tony Dorigo would have to play well every game because he knew that
You were behind him.
Gary Speed the same. And when the likes of Vinnie Jones came and giving it the big one that Vinnie were at Wimbledon, Gordon Strachan got up one day and gave him a clap round the ear hole and said, Vinnie, you don't need to do that. You can play. Changed Vinnie's whole perspective as footballer and went on really, really well at Leeds.
Yeah.
To be replaced by Gary McAllister the next year.
Yeah. What was it like at Leeds? So you've signed for Leeds, rescued relegation, won Division 2 in 91, and then won Division 1 in 92. Last team to win Division 1 before it changed to the Premier League.
Yep, and Howard Wilkins is the last English manager.
Like what's it like playing for Leeds at that point?
It was tough. It was tough because Howard had this way of training and it suited me. Didn't suit the rest of them. It was running.
Yeah.
I mean, when we do the bleep test, which everybody hates, nobody likes to do the bleep test. It didn't bother me. I just kept going. There was no rondos. There was no circles. There was no five-a-sides. It was 18 yards to 18 yards was the smallest game. We used to do set pieces, the reserves, the first team, the juniors, for an hour and a half every Friday. Lee Chapman had just signed for Leeds. Ian Baird knew his time was up, and Bairdy put his bib on because he was a reserve. And we're doing a practice game, and Lee Chapman corner. Bairdy goes and marks him. Next thing, Bairdy, bang, chap his nose all over the place. So he couldn't play on the Saturdays.
So Bairdy gets to play.
Bairdy played, but then obviously, eventually Howard sold him. Sold Bobby Davison, bought in Carl Schuck, bought in Eric Cantona. Eric Cantona, he came from Sheffield Wednesday. He wouldn't go on trial at Sheffield Wednesday, but he came to Leeds and we played Blackburn Rovers at the old Ewood Park. I'm sure it was like February. And in February
in Blackburn,
it's absolutely Baltic. It was freezing and it was cold this night. And Eric's playing, and after about 20 minutes, Mick Hennigan's on the sideline with his mouth open like that. And you can just see Eric walking off the pitch. Reserve game. Walking off the pitch, goes down the tunnel, never comes back. He'd gone home. Too cold for him. And basically he's on trial.
How did he fit in with that?
I don't know because he wasn't Howard's type of player. But he had character, he had a charisma, he had an elegance, and I think Howard liked that. And I think Howard wanted to bring him in because of what he saw in his mentality. And he'd always be on his own. When I would room with him, he wouldn't speak to me in English. He'd always, he couldn't put the TV on. He'd always read a book. Before every training session, me and him would go out and do one-touch passing. We used to have a channel of 30 metres by 10 metres, and it was always one-touch passing. Loved it. And
did you get anything out of him at that point? No, anything? Conversation, anything like a bit of...
No, he was like,
or was he just all...
It was his own man, and Howard, I don't know, Howard just tried to accommodate him in the team and the squad, but Lee Chapman was scoring goals, Carl Schutt was scoring goals, Bobby Davison was scoring goals, Imre Varadi was scoring goals. Eric kind of he just couldn't fit in that. I've always compared a football team to a jigsaw puzzle, and every little piece has its job to do. And no matter how good you are or how things happen for you, if that jigsaw piece is not you and you cannot fit into that place, doesn't matter how you do it, bang it in, squeeze it in, push it in, it won't fit. And I think that's Eric just didn't fit into the way Howard wanted to play. And obviously when he left to go to the rivals, Man United, it was like the shock of the season, especially for £1 million. But maybe Howard was thinking, well, he's giving me problems. Maybe could be the same at Man United, so it'll be better.
Ferguson.
I mean, he was class.
Yeah,
he was class. He could park anywhere he wanted. He could leave his car on double yellow lines. He was a messiah. We went to a training game one day in Harrogate. We were all late. We were all in convoy. We were all flying at probably 100 mile an hour down the country lanes. We got stopped. Eric, was in the car, and the police loved Eric. And no, go on, off you go.
Leeds did have that midfield four. Like, would have been hard to get into, wasn't it? You're looking at, what is it? You're looking at Batty, McAllister, Speed.
And there was David Rocastle, Steve Hodge came, and there was some good young lads coming through. Andy Cousins were coming through. Gary Kelly was a right winger that made into a right back.
That's it, yeah. You said then, right? You were always a runner. You could always work hard. You go to South Africa, you find your tech. Like, you're getting after people, you're going past people and breezing around. Like, what are you learning from those lads day to day now? Are you picking up? Is there anything that you pick up from them?
Yeah.
Or are you just learning to be a part of it?
No, you the thing that, and it's continued through all my career because I've taken it with me. It was like that togetherness, that fulfillment that we had a job to do, and it was instilled in us that we had to do it this way. The last 15 minutes in any football match, Leeds would overpower people, and especially at home with that Gelder end. Get them on the back of you. It was brilliant. And like I said, Gary Kelly, he came as a right winger. Mel Sterling got injured. Howard put him at right back. Brilliant, brilliant.
Never looked back.
Never looked back. Speedo, God rest his soul, just went to a different level. Bats just was Dave Bats. Dave Bats doesn't even watch football at the moment. I don't even think he's been back to Ellen Road. I think he might have gone back for the Speedos when they had a thing for Gary. And I haven't seen him, I haven't spoke to him since I left.
Was Strachan as funny then as he is
Strachan's
on the telly now?
Strachan's brilliant. I mean, he was the catalyst in that team. He made that team tick. Even though Fergie got rid of him, Howard saw that he could bring that character, that attitude, that energy, and that vibrancy to the team, which is what he always needed in the club. He kind of became a mentor to Vinnie Jones, to myself. He just had so much energy, and he loved the game. He loved the game, and he wanted to do things to help each other, and he was like a proper captain's captain. And he's only like 3'4" in high heels. But what we had though was we always went out after a game. We'd always go and eat once a week. We'd go and drink all together. We were always in each other's pockets. And that was the beauty of that Leeds United team. John Newson came from Sheffield Wednesday. David Weatherall came from Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously Nigel Worthington came. He brought John Lukic back, and he'd got the right balance. And the thing is, we were all desperate to get in that team because the one thing you want to do is when you're playing football, you want to play at Ellen Road.
What's it like at Ellen Road then?
It is unbelievable.
That season when you win the league, what's Ellen Road like?
It was just mental. It was just mental because, again, 2 years before that, they were struggling. They got relegated, and then they were struggling for relegation. Billy Bremner had taken over, was in charge, and he's a god to Leeds United old fans. And Howard came, and I don't think Leeds knew what they were going to gain. I don't think Leeds liked his style of play when he first joined. Most of the players who Billy Bremner brought in, they hated it. But that's what got them results. That's what won them games.
Was there a particular match or moment that stands out for you?
My full debut was at Barnsley, the year we got promoted from the second division. And all my family are Barnsley fans.
Okay.
So that was that, and we played at Oakwell, which was a dream come true, getting pelters from my uncles and my cousins. And I think
not Phyllis, would you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the game that stood out for me was that game that I think Man United needed to win, and they drew. And I think, if I can remember, that's when we knew
we'd done it.
We'd won the league because we were written off. Man United had a big slump. And we kept winning. We getting a point, and I was kind of like the social convener of all the stuff that we did. I'd make sure that we got the videos on the bus, like the music on the bus. I'd make sure that after the game, I would, get the results off the TV and be in the dressing room. And before we got stripped to do the running, I'd tell the results. And, we were just, it was just like a great atmosphere.
But yeah, you're a piece of the jigsaw, aren't you? You might have not been in the middle. You might not have been the last piece that maybe you have been the last piece.
I fitted into it. I fitted into it. I just couldn't get into the, the central of it.
But again, like looking to that team.
No, I couldn't.
It's tough one, isn't it? Yeah.
And
coming from where you've been, 4 years earlier, to now all of a sudden being lashed in the middle of that, 3 years earlier, must be mental.
And Tony Dirigo got injured a couple of times, and I played at Bramall Lane and at Norwich City. Played at Blackburn, we won 5-1. Stuart Ripley, who was on fire at the time, right winger, I had to mark him. I had probably one of the best games of my life for Leeds that day. Created 2 goals. And yeah, it was like 4 years ago. I'm back. 4 years back, I'm in South Africa. Not a prayer of getting back into English football because Howard knew who I were and what I were. And there's a video that we brought out over that championship when you say called "Do You Want to Win?" There's deleted scenes on YouTube, and one of the questions was, "Why did you bring Dylan back?" Mick Hennigan said, "Look, bring him back. He's going to be good for this club."
Yeah,
and Howard said, "But he'll never play, Gaffer. Doesn't matter. Is what we need." And it's like the biggest compliment ever.
Yeah.
To be a part of that film for one, but then obviously to hear that, I mean, it was like, speechless.
Go, don't you? Yeah.
Because then I knew why. I knew why that I'd come back. I came back for a reason.
Yeah. What's Vinnie Jones like when he turns up?
Brilliant.
Was he
the most genuine?
Is that story true that he 2-footed a mascot?
Yeah, he did. He was running through for a penalty and he just dived in front of the Geldon. But again, it was just typical Vinnie. But Vinnie would do anything for anybody.
He got a bad rap, didn't he? He wasn't a bad player, was he?
He was a good...
Yeah.
Well, I say, Gordon Strachan got up one day and they were in the dressing room at half-time and Strachan got hold of him and said, "Vinnie, stop. You're not at Wimbledon now. You're at Leeds. You can play." And that changed him. And he was gutted when he got replaced by Gary McAllister. Went to Sheffield United back with Harry. That really hurt him because he did really, really well. But I still speak to him today. I'll phone him up or I'll drop him a message. He calls me legend. Vinnie Jones, my nickname's Ledge. I'm a legend. I could get tickets for concerts. I could get tickets for anything. I could do things that, even Vinnie Jones couldn't do. So he called me Ledge. And it's always stuck.
It gets to 93 and you go to Reading. Is that because your contract was up? Or is that just...
My contract was up. I'd just spent 3 months at Blackpool. Blackpool got promoted. I wasn't part of the promotion team. I'd left.
Did you get a medal for that, though?
No, I didn't, unfortunately. I joined in January, February, March, and it was a 3-month loan. And they'd offered 90,000 to buy me. Billy Eyre, lovely, God rest his soul, he was brilliant. And they'd offered 90 grand, but Tony Dirigo got injured.
Oh, so you got called back?
So I got pulled back, and I played 3 games. And then I think my agent at the time had kind of put a silly figure to Blackpool, and they said no. So that fell through. And coming towards the end of the season, Gordon Strachan said, "Look, they've offered you another contract, but you need to go and play. You need to go.
You can't be the 14th man anymore.
You need to go and play because you're going to regret it."
Yeah.
I was like 24, 25 then. And he was the one that said, "Look, go." And Huddersfield Town came in with an offer, £1, and I'd met the manager. Can't remember his name, Scott Ian something. Met him, and because it was local, I'd agreed to sign. I shook his hand, said, "Yeah, I'll sign." And then Gordon phoned me, says, "Listen, Mark McGee at Reading wants you to come down, speak to him."
Was there a tie there, or was it just
him and Mark?
Okay,
big friends. So I drove down to Reading, met Mark McGee and Colin Lee. Looked around Helm Park, and we used to have a training ground in Pangbourne, really posh village. Training ground was amazing, and it just sold me. And then speaking to Mark, I drove back home and I spoke to Ian, the Huddersfield manager, and he went, "Absolutely mental. You shook on the deal. That's as good as, a contract." And I said, "Look, sorry, I am embarrassed." I said, "But," I phoned Billy Eyre up and I said, "Billy, do I sign for Huddersfield or Reading?" He went, "Reading," in a heartbeat. He says, "Mark McGee's."
What was going on at Reading at the time that pulled? I mean, apart from the training ground, was there something else about the club that pulled you in?
Well, Gordon obviously had spoke very highly about Mark, and I didn't know anybody at Reading, didn't know any
Because
players.
this would have been Division
2.
Division 2.
Yeah, he just said, look, he'll look after you. Mark will look after you. But speaking to Colin Lee, who was probably a wee bit ahead of Mark. Mark was a great man manager, great motivator, but Colin was the coach. And Colin said, look, we want you to play left back because we know what your strength is. It's going forward and it's getting crosses in. We've got Jimmy Quinn up front that needs service. He says, and that's why we signed you. And it just made sense. And when I went down there, they put me up in a nice hotel. I had a nice lake around it with water skiing, nice health club, and it just made sense.
Would this been the first time down south as well?
Yeah, first down. God, don't tell me.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you've been to South Africa, it's one thing, but the south of England is a different kettle of fish.
South, and Ray Ranson had signed the same week as me.
Right.
And one day we turned up for training, and everybody's in pairs, and you do your warm up around the field. And me and Ray had just signed, so we became, a pair. And we're jogging around, and I'm saying, and Ray said, what you been doing this weekend? I said, well, I've been looking at houses, been looking at apartments. And he went, Dylan, let me give you one bit of good advice. Do not buy a house down south because you'll never make any money. You'll probably lose money. Fuck up of my life was running with Ray Ranson. Running with Ray Ranson, because if he had not said that, then I would have bought a house down south. The 3 houses that I remember seeing at the time were going for like 120, 140, 160,000, which was a lot of money then, in 93.
What is that now, though?
One was valued at 2.75. That was like 5 years ago. One in Notting Hill went for, I think, 2.5, which was right behind the places where that Love Actually film or what.
You'd have been all over that, though, the music scene and all that round there.
It was like, and he told me, do not buy a house.
Fucking Ransom, man, Ransom. He's got a lot to answer for.
By the way, can't wait to meet him. I'm going to knock him out.
He's got a lot to answer for, that fucker.
And I got a signing on fee of £10,000, and I was in the bookies, and we were 33 to 1 to get promoted. Not to win the league, to get promoted.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not a gambler. And I asked my financial advisor if I should. And he said, no. He said, don't be mad. Us, no matter how good they are, there's always that possibility. He says, you've got your 10 grand. Bang it in your pension.
And then you went to win the league and you got Player of the Year.
Won the league, got Player of the Year. I mean, it could
You've had an absolute nightmare.
That's why I'm
skinned. You even sat on this couch with me.
That's why I'm skinned. That's why I'm skinned. Because I haven't got a business acumen in me.
You're too nice, man. You're too nice.
Listening to bad people tell me bad things.
Oh my God.
So it's we had a good year. Again, we had that togetherness at Reading. I knew from the first week I got there that we were going to win the league, because I arranged a day where we all went out to a pub in Pangbourne together. Nobody left until everybody left. And we sat in that pub and we talked. We found out about each other's players' character, background, who they were. Phil Parkinson, didn't know him from Adam, came from Bury. Archie Lovell, Jimmy Quinn, Kevin Dillon, Aidy Williams, Jeff Hopkins. Shaka had just arrived. There was Mickey Goodin, who was a local hero at Reading and at Rotherham United. There was all these young players, James Lambert, Scotty Taylor, Michael Gilks was probably one of the quickest wingers in the football at the time. But that first week we went out together, we all knew we were going to do.
Have you brought in that Leeds mentality with you and been like, right, this is what I need to do? Because you're not, and again, now you're not the 14th man anymore, right?
I was one of the fixtures. I played 43 games. I missed one game. I brought that spirit down. We always went out together after the game. I would say 80% of us would go out. Jimmy Quinn and Tom Jones would go back to Swindon because that's where they lived. Ray Ranson would go back to Manchester. But the rest of us would go out, on a Sunday. On a Tuesday night, we'd used to go clubbing, everybody. It were £1 a pint in Utopia, this new massive nightclub that would open.
And you hadn't won any money, so you had to go.
No, and we'd all go. We'd all report for training on Thursday, and we'd bang on the button. Our social life was immense, but our football life was more important. And the things that we've done, and we'd go to London every other week. We'd go and visit people, all the supporters clubs. We'd go and sit with the supporters clubs,
Yeah.
like we did at Leeds, like we did at Sheffield Wednesday. We'd always be involved with supporters, and that made it easier. And Elm Park was an intimidating place to come because it was small, it was compact, it was right on the edge of the football field. You got that intimidating atmosphere, and the way we played was really, really exciting. Quinny was scoring goals left, right, and centre.
You must have felt great there. Like the fans have taken to you.
Yeah,
You've got Jimmy Quinn up front banging goals in, and they give Player of the Year to a left back.
I mean, it was just like I didn't expect it. I thought Quinny would get it hands down.
Yeah.
But there's always a running joke. It's because I went round all the clubs with the forms and excited. But like I said, we had this connection with the fans. We had this connection because we made time for them. You know, there was never anybody that was out of the picture or out of the jigsaw puzzle. Everybody was part of that jigsaw puzzle, and it worked. And then obviously the next year, Mark and Colin left to go to Leicester City.
I know everyone's in the team and everyone's together there, but who were you closest knit with down at Reading? Would it have been some of the Northern lads?
No, Shaka was because obviously he'd come over from Bermuda. Parky, but Parky was with his partner, so he wouldn't occasionally come out with the guys. I think the one I did join up with a lot was Simon Osborne when he came the following year.
Right.
But like I say, there was always that group of players that we went out.
Yeah.
We had this thing that in the players' lounge, we ran our own players' lounge. The ones that were injured used to get the truck, go over to France, fill the truck up, bring it back.
Max and Paddy, booze cruise.
Yep. That's what would happen. Anybody was allowed in the players' lounge, fans, friends, family, and it was one of them. Whoever left last locked up, and then we'd meet into town, and like I say, it was that camaraderie, that togetherness, that.
And the managers were all right with it as well because they were getting results.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of times they didn't agree with what we were doing, but within reason, you know, we made sure that we didn't push it too far.
Yeah, you've gone up there. You've won Division 2. You've gone into Division 1. That was 93-94 when you did that, right?
Yes.
And then 94-95, you finished second in Division 1, but you didn't go up because that was the season that the Premier League was taking extra less teams.
Less teams. One went up.
So you went to playoffs and then got done by Bolton.
Yeah. Oh. Well, that's when it kind of, when Jimmy Quinn and Mickey Gooding took over, we didn't really have a good relationship because, I don't know, maybe it's because of my popularity at the club at the time. I had a bad game against Ipswich Town. Tony Rougier absolutely did me. You know, we lost 4-0 and I got dropped and I found it hard to get in. I was fighting with Mickey Gooding. They were joint managers and Quinny. We didn't see eye to eye. I was in, I was out. And when it came to the playoffs, they decided that they were going to go with a back three.
Had they done that during the season?
No, they've not done it all season. But we played Bolton at home. And I think there was about 8 games left. And they went to a back three. And it worked. We won 2-0. And that kind of made us second in the league.
Okay.
They continued that back three all the way through the playoffs. And the biggest thing you do as a footballer, or want to be as a footballer, you want to play at Wembley. Not the new Wembley, the old Wembley.
The old Wembley, yeah.
That's your dream as a footballer. You want to play at Wembley. Now, I knew I wasn't going to play because they were going to play. They played the three at the back through the playoffs, and it worked. And I could understand why they did it because they had McAteer and they had David Lee, who was very, very quick on the right wing.
Very quick, yeah.
And I could see where they were coming from with Michael Gilks playing as a wing back, and they had Jeff Hopkins, Eddie Williams, Keith McPherson were the back three. And the night before the game, we're at the hotel, we got the suits on, and Mickey Gooding tapped me on the shoulder and says, "You're not even on the bench, so you may as well just go to the bar and get pissed." You know, that was worse than being released by Sheffield Wednesday. You know,
because that's like, we're not even arsed, mate.
Yeah, it was just like, and I've never forgiven him for that. It took me a long time to speak to Mickey Gooding over that. So we lost the playoffs, and then the next season I was out of contract. I refused to sign another contract because of what had happened. I believed that you got a free transfer, and I was sure somebody would come for me. Anyway, nobody did, and I kind of played a game here and there. And then we played Norwich away, and I came off the bench, scored the equaliser, and I scored what should have been the winner. They scored an equaliser. Jeremy Goss scored the header. Jimmy Quinn should have picked him up. I went absolutely mad at Quinny, but because I'd scored, I played the next game, and I played a short corner to Parky. Parky gave it back, and Tony Thompson's going to come straight through me, and I thought, I'm going to be bad here. And I jumped, and as I jumped, he hit my legs, and I did this full circle, and I did the splits, and I ripped my hamstring off. Oh. And the worst thing were, I'm laying on the bench at half time, and Quinny pops his head round and said, "Well, that's what your move to Norwich up tomorrow, isn't it?" And I went, "Excuse me." He says, "Yeah, we're gonna
because of that game.
You could have gone to Norwich because Gary Megson was the manager." And I'm like, my legs the size of a tree trunk, because of the blood, not knowing how bad it were. Yeah, and that was, I don't know, no one to played, but I didn't know.
They knew when they played you.
And it was a nasty injury. I was out for 18 months.
Bloody hell. And up to that point, you've had Howard Wilkinson, you've had such good faith from him. You've had, Strachan sorting you out with Mark McGee. You've had all this stuff. Is this the first time where you really got done over by management?
Well, like I say, I didn't.
And it's what? You were probably what at that point? 25?
26.
26?
I had, my first season was brilliant. My second season was great until Mark and Colin had left. And the third season, the dynamics of the club had changed. Not too many players were happy with Quinny and Geordie. And like I said, it took me a long time to speak to both of them. Get on great with Quinny now. Message him. I think about things, Gary, is that every club I've been to, I've won something, either promotion or championship or a cup. And it's continued into my coaching. So I don't know if it's a good luck charm, if I'm a good luck charm, or it's because of the way I've continued to grow and develop as a coach. But every club I've been to, and if I'd have been, in hindsight, I could go back to Back to the Future when he gets the almanac, put money on Leeds getting promoted.
I'd have bought an house down south first, is what I would have done.
Exactly.
Forget that. Never mind Leeds. I'd have gone bloody 33-1, and I'd have bought that house down south.
Yeah, and it's like I say, it continued. And what happened when I got that injury and I got released at Reading because I was out of contract, and I was told that I'd probably never play again. But as Howard Wilkinson always says, I've got bed springs on my back, so every time I get knocked down, I get bounced back up. I went on trial at Rotherham. John McGovern had invited me down with Archie Gemmell, and I played this reserve game knowing that this probably was my last chance. And I played in it, and even though it went really, really well, Archie said, "Look, we're not ready to sign any more players." But a stroke of luck, Bobby Williamson, ex-Rotherham United striker, was reserve team manager at Kilmarnock, and he phoned a friend of a friend who was a policeman that knew me and said, "Look, Kilmarnock are looking for a left back. Can you go next week?"
Did you know where it was? Did you know where Killy was?
Didn't have a clue where Killy were, because my favourite team in Scotland was Stranraer and Stenhousemuir, just because of the names. I weren't the Celtic, I weren't the Rangers. I just loved those two names, and I didn't know where Killy were, so I flew up from Reading. I was living in Reading. I flew up from Reading, and Bobby picked me up, took me to a posh hotel in Troon, right next to the golf course.
Yeah.
And I played a game on Wednesday against Hibs. We won 3-0. And then I made my debut at Dundee United on the Saturday. And
that was it.
They offered me a 18-month contract.
Jesus. What was it like adjusting to football in Scotland? Because one thing to move down south, but it's another thing to go up above the border.
There's honestly, the comparison is, you can't even compare them together. It's just night and day. As every Scottish person knows, it's just mental, and I love it, and I loved it.
What, just the fans, the place?
The fans, the place, the people. My then wife, she hated Yorkshire people, so moving to Scotland, she decided...
Where was she from, your missus?
From Reading.
Okay.
She decided that she didn't want to live in Scotland. I'd see her once every month for a weekend or a week, depending on the game situation. But, anybody that's listening to this, if you ever get the chance, wherever you are in the world, go to Glasgow. Edinburgh, yes, nice, touristy, but go to Glasgow. Glasgow is just one hell of a city. Again, we had this club that was onto something kind of special. Alex Totten was the manager. He signed me, but Bobby Williamson brought me up. Within like 2 months, Alex Totten got sacked and Bobby took over.
Right.
When Bobby came in, he again brought that togetherness, made sure that every player had his own thing to do, made sure that everybody else worked for each other. And he brought some young players in. And I think we finished 4th that year, won the Scottish Cup that year.
It was a big deal, wasn't it? For Killy, I remember when it happened because I was
last time they'd won it in 1967.
What's that? I've seen. I mean, listen, anyone who knows you has seen a picture of you, top off, blue wig on, holding the Scottish Cup. What was that like for you that day? Because you've gone in first season.
First season, it was
again.
I just signed before. I think it was 96, Christmas 96, when I played my first game against Dundee United away, against a very good winger called Andy McLaren. And I kissed the floor after the game. I got on my knees and I kissed the floor and I cried because I never thought, I'd been told I'd never play again.
To come from.
We had a bonus structure at Killy. You'd get 500 quid if you won a league game, but you get £1,000 if you beat Celtic or you beat Rangers. And we did. We'd always beat them. And
why do you think that is? Just quality? Didn't expect it?
The chairman just loved beating them, and it was lovely, Mr. Moffat. I think we finished 4th that year in the league, and we won the cup. We qualified for Europe, and again, I brought that thing that we'd go out on a Wednesday night, we'd go out on a Saturday night, we'd meet on a Sunday afternoon. It was just we were together, and it's like from Sheffield Wednesday all the way through my football career as a player and as a coach now. I mean, that togetherness beats anything. Because then you know people's character. When we were at Killy, we went out and played with no fear because we were better than anybody. And the second season, I think we finished 4th again. We qualified for Europe again. We didn't do too well in the cup competitions, but one of the games were. And I know you're going to ask me this question.
Yeah, I've got a number of Celtic fans that will love the answer for it as well because of the knock on of what happened. But
I was married, and every Friday night before the game, me and my ex-wife me and my wife, we used to go to an Italian restaurant at Troon Marine Hotel, which was on the golf course, and we used to have pasta and pizza. This game, I decided, no, I'm going to cook. It was a big game. It was Rangers. If they won, it was a milestone in Scottish football because they're on 9 each.
Yeah, they'd have gone 10 in a row.
9 in a row. They'd have gone 10 in a row, and it would have been massive.
And this is some Rangers team. Gattuso playing then?
Gattuso were in, Hendry, Andy Dibble was in goal, Trevor Stevens was playing. You've got McCoist, George Alberts. I mean, it was star-studded. It was Brian Laudrup, who was the best player in Scotland at the time. So I said to the missus, I said, look, I'll go and buy dinner and cook. You can have a bottle of wine, whatever. And we had dinner. She went to bed. I'm tidying up and I'm like, damn, I've got no money for the paper boy, the milkman and the window cleaner. I went into a purse and that little plastic bit where you put the photos in, I saw a picture of me and her in it. And I thought, oh, that's nice. We weren't going through the best of times. She didn't want to move up. I didn't want her to move up, to be honest. I mean, I was happy. I was on my own. It was great. and for some whatever reason, Gary, I took it out of the wallet. Don't know why. And I went, oh, that's nice. And as I put it in, I dropped it. And it turned upside down, picked it up. And there's the same picture with her and this other guy.
Oh, you're joking.
And I thought, I kind of didn't know him, didn't recognise him. Good looking chap, So she had a vanity case and it was always locked. But I got a trick of opening things and I got into the vanity case. I looked through it. There was a brand new men's Rolex watch there. There was cards, there was Christmas cards, birthday cards, which she always did. And I pulled out these pile of letters, 5 love letters, and I read them. I mean, to be honest, Gary, I fell in love with them. I read every one of them.
She's still asleep at this point.
She's still asleep. And obviously she's polished a bottle of wine off, so she was still a wee bit pissed. And she's screaming, oh, I love him, and he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And, you're up here and I'm down there and I don't want to live. And it was just like kind of a screaming match. And she's crying. And I just went for a walk. Anyway, as I came back, she'd obviously gone to bed, and there was a bottle of Balvenie in the corner.
Oh, what time's this?
This is like at maybe 10 o'clock at night.
What time's the
10:30.
game? Was it?
3 o'clock the following day.
Oh, like 3 o'clock.
And I think the last drink I had was at like 28.
Oh, no.
I polished the whole bottle off. And I don't know how I did it. I wasn't upset, Gary. I was just
Drained.
I was angry.
Mm.
I was kind of, how could this happen, and how I found out. We went for pre-match, and I sneaked onto the bus, and I looked like I'd not slept, and I jumped onto the bus, hood over my mouth, went to the back of the bus, lied down, went to sleep, didn't go in for pre-match, and played the game. Had the best game of my life.
But there's a bit more to the story, though, isn't there? You're going to have to go with it, because I heard it the other day and I was laughing my head off. So you've gone through pre-match, you've got to the game, you've got your gear on, you're obviously starting, you're going up, you're playing against Laudrup in a game at Ibrox as well.
So much importance. And it means something.
So
the half of Glasgow.
Did you warm up as a team?
No,
usually.
I went out early. I went out early doors, and I got the goalkeeper's gloves on, and I'm like, they had a set of goals that you'd put on the side so you didn't mess up the goal mouth. And I'm in the goals, and all the substitutes are smashing balls, and I'm flinging myself, and I'm making worldy saves in the top corners, worldy saves
like
in the bottom
just
corner.
caked in shit,
Caked in mud. I was, and it was a wet day as well, so I was just diving around, and Mark Riley, who tells the story, came up to me and he says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Maybe I'm pissed." And he went, "I can smell it." And I actually told him what had happened, and he says, "Can you play?" I said, "Yeah." And he was one of these players that you didn't let him down, and he was only a little terrier. He's like, Yosemite Sam, that attitude that you made sure that you played. And best game of my life. Gaffer coming off, the gaffer said, "Absolutely fantastic, well done, but you're fined a week's wages." I went, "Why?" He says, "You're pissed." And I was. But the adrenaline.
You set one of the goals up, didn't you?
I set the first goal up, yeah.
Yeah.
Set the first goal up.
Bloody hell. Got man of the match?
I think I got man of the match with the...
It wasn't a bottle of whiskey, was it?
Thank God it weren't. Thank God it weren't. But yeah.
So when you're up there, apart from your missus is coming up from London, is there any other English people up there? Would you have been around Gaza and all them while they?
Yeah. We every time we played an Old Firm game on a Saturday night, we'd all meet up.
Yeah.
So after the Rangers games, we'd always go to Shawlands. With Gaza, with Jimmy Five Bellies, with Ian Durant, Coisty, Lorenzo Amoruso, good-looking Italian guy with that name.
You get knockdowns off him.
Many.
Yeah.
That was the beauty of going out with Lorenzo, especially in Archaeos, which was one of the best nightclubs in Glasgow at the time. So we'd always go out with him. I mean, Gaza was hilarious. Gaza was Gaza. It would just do crazy stuff, and it would always involve Jimmy Five Bellies. It told him to sit still on a pool table while he put a cigarette stub on his nose for like 5 seconds, and if he moved, then he wouldn't get his money. And even though it was Gaza, he was just like it's just like me and you here sat here, but he was funny.
Yeah.
But he was good. He was good in the way he never gave it the big one. He never, he was always just Gaza. Same with Coisty. Coisty's a Glasgow legend. He would always be so friendly to everybody and anybody that we met. And like I said, we'd go out with a few of the Celtic players, but we wouldn't have that same atmosphere. There's kind of there was a different vibe. It was like they didn't care. They just went out and had a good time. These was like they had to be seen in the right places. Yeah, we had some good fun nights, and mostly because we'd either beat them at Ibrox or we beat them at Rugby Park. And it was like I say, Dylan Kerr playing against Gaza. Ray Wilkins, was my idol, and playing against him was just like a dream come true. He was just, and such a nice guy. And then obviously Pat Nevin joined Killy, me and Pat, same type of music, same things that we like about life. he was just a brilliant role model. And my one and only goal was, created by Pat when I played for Killy, and celebrating, I jumped over the stand, ran up to the top of the stand, just turned around in the crowd, jumping up and down like an idiot, and getting booked and getting reported to the police commissioner, who was the chairman at Kilmarnock at the time, to be told not to do that because it could incite a riot. I'm like, I just did it just excited because I scored my first goal. And then my injuries had kept me back a lot. I'd ruptured hamstring, both Achilles scraped. I'd had 5 hernia operations, 4 groin operations. So
it's taking its toll on you now.
I got to a point where it was hurting.
So you leave Killy 2000?
Yeah, I left Killy for 2000.
Did you like Scotland?
I love Scotland.
Yeah.
Love it. I've still got my house in Troon now. I don't think I'll ever sell that. But I'd got an insurance cover for 50 grand. If I'd have retired at 32, I'd have got 50 grand insurance. But I didn't want it. I wanted to carry on playing. I wanted to keep playing.
So you go to Morton.
I was struggling with my groin. I went to Hamilton first. I played through the pain. It was horrible. And I joined, and there were -15 because of the financial irregularities. And again, we had that same mentality, that same crop of players. No superstars, just hard-working, honest players.
And you've won again in your first season.
We won the first season. We won the championship. So, I've got a great medal collection, and unfortunately, they're all on my legs. They're all on tattoos because I don't even know where my medals are. But yeah, it's been a success after success after success wherever I've been.
Yeah,
and I'm proud that I've added something to the football club's legacy, where they've won something or they've done something that's promoted players like Gary Speed, who's gone on to become, a footballing legend. Working with Gordon Strachan, working with Dave Rockcastle, players that Stevie Hodge, who's just recently sold Diego Maradona's shirt for £7.1 million, and he still probably won't buy a drink. And yeah, it's just been, I've been lucky, but it's been hard work. I've never asked for any favours.
Yeah,
I've never ever spoke to anyone and said, look, can you get me a club? Can you do me this? Can you give me a chance? I've done it all myself. And it's been hard, but it's been amazing.
So what was there a point? Was there a point in your career there where you leave Killy, you're bouncing around a couple of clubs, you're at Hamilton Accies for a season, and then you go back again after that? Was there a point where you're like, yeah, I can't do this anymore? Like, I've gonna have to pack it in?
No, because I ended up when I finished at Morton, I ended up playing for Slough Town. Then after that, finished after about 3 months, I went to Harrogate Town because Mick Hennigan was then assistant manager at Harrogate Town, and I used to drive from Scotland every Saturday and Wednesday. Used to have a 4-hour drive there, 4-hour drive back on the same day to play for Harrogate Town. Then I got a trial at Carlisle, and I played a friendly against Gretna, and I got injured. Somebody, Rowan Alexander, hit me so hard that, again, I flew upside down and landed on my shoulder. So I couldn't play for 6 months because I couldn't move my shoulder. And that's when I got offered an opportunity to come to America to do a soccer camp in 2002. And I went, and then that's when I fell in love with America.
You come in 02, you do the camps. How long were you here for in 02?
It was 6 weeks.
So in that 6 weeks, what's it like when you first get here?
Within a weekend, I loved it. I loved and this is back in 2002. The kids just loved playing soccer.
Yeah.
The camp was in a place called Gaffney, which was in South Carolina. Very little to do.
Yeah.
So you basically were on camp all the time, but the weekends you were free. So Myrtle Beach, Savannah, Charleston, Atlanta, Charlotte, Spartanburg, Greensville. We went as many places as we could. And that's when I fell in love with the American ideology of working with kids. And
would it always have been your plan after footy to stay in footy but do the coaching?
To be a coach.
Yeah.
I did my A licence in 2001 and I failed. And I failed miserably because I didn't know what I was doing. Well, actually, I didn't fail miserably. I failed because one little kid decided to do things that I didn't want him to do, and I swore. I called him a little fucker, and I could see the assessment and go,
yeah.
I could see it in my corner of my eye. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I failed it because it made me more determined to eventually get it, which I did in 2005. And alongside me at the time was Jose Mourinho. He was on the course, and me and him linked up together with the SFA. We was like a partner in the group, and nobody believed who Jose were. Nobody knew who we were, and we were in this pub in Largs, a famous pub in the area called Smith's, and they had the first internet computer that you put £1 in, and you could look on the internet.
Yeah.
And one day, Jose,
that would have been dangerous in a pub, right?
It were
pound in a people looking at the pornos.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the porn channel were on.
Well,
at the time.
I don't know about that, you know.
But
maybe they
flick a switch. We see Jose with sat next to Bobby Robson with Barcelona.
Oh yeah, he's on the bench, isn't he? The interpreter.
Yeah. And it was like, wow, because nobody understood who we were. He said he was from Barcelona. He's Portuguese, but I got him with great. I made him laugh. He still refers me to as Crazy Dylan, which is kind of a compliment and a half. Again, I've never asked. I speak to him probably birthdays, Christmas. If he does well, if he wins something,
yeah.
I'll always send him an email. I'll always get a reply from him. Why I've never asked him for any help or any advice, I don't know. I've just never done that. If I ever send him a message, within 24 hours, there's a reply. And like I say, last time I saw him was...
All these people, right? Is it just the way that you feel like you act around them? You make people feel like... I mean, listen, was he a big name at the time? No, but you just strike up that rapport with someone. Yeah.
It's
just about being honest with him, isn't it?
Just be me.
Just be yourself.
Be me. I'm just who I am. And it's got me into a lot of trouble. I've done things that I shouldn't have done. My mum hated me being on social media. She always used to tell me to get off it. But because I left in 2009, I went on it because of my mum. But my agents have always said, get off social media, get off social media. Not because I was doing anything bad, but, in this interview, in this what we're talking about, I've loved my life. I've got no regrets. I've no regrets, Gary. And I've enjoyed it, and I've been lucky. And I've been up and I've been down, I've been out. I've been the practical joker. I've been the one that takes all the hits and cannot look back and say, oh, I should have done that, or I wish I'd have done that. I've never done that.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm proud of, because if somebody says, would you change anything? Probably I would have changed the first year in my professional contract and done it a bit more serious. But I've done things that a lot of people haven't done. I've coached in 4 continents. I've visited places that many people could never ever dream of going. I've met so many people. I've met so many friends. We only met 7 weeks ago. We've got this relationship now, which is for life. And that's where I believe that I've been so good as a player and as a coach and as a friend. I am selfish. I do think of myself a lot, but I think about others more. And in this situation I'm in now, I just want to give as much experience, as much energy and as much enthusiasm to this game they call soccer in this country, to these kids that 99.9% will never make it in the game. But it's giving them that opportunity, giving them that belief, giving them that chance, giving them that hope, like I was when I was a kid.
Being a piece of the jigsaw.
And not telling anybody, look, son, you're not good enough. You'll never play for this team because you're not good enough. I will never do that. And it's been hell. I've sacrificed not having kids. I've sacrificed not having relationships.
Yeah.
I've sacrificed not being at home for my mum for, nearly 20 years, on and off.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved to Scotland, that was a haven to come up, which was great for me. Without my mum, I wouldn't have been the person I am now, because she told me right from wrong.
What's the biggest piece of advice you got from your ma?
Don't ever change. One of the things, my dad used to take me everywhere. My dad got me into football. And, unfortunately, I've spoken to my dad, since I got married in 95. But it's always been my mum. Mum has always been the backbone of who I were. And she, I told her to fuck off when I was 7 years old, and she scrubbed my mouth out with soapy water. And I can still taste it to this day, that horrible green school soap that she did.
Oh, minging.
I didn't know what I was saying, but I told her to fuck off one day when I was 7. But she just wanted me to be happy. She just wanted me to have a normal life. And I've chased this football dream, and I'm still chasing it. If I gave up that ambition, if I gave up that dream, then I'd walk away from football.
What made you want to come back here?
I've applied for hundreds and hundreds of jobs over the last 20 years, colleges, schools, MLS teams, USL teams. I've had a couple of interviews. And in 2023, I had a bad experience in South Africa at the last club that I'd went to. And when I came home to England, I came to try and make it in English football. And I knew it would be hard. Not as hard as I thought it were. But David Bagan, who used to be a former teammate at Killy, had come and worked for the company. And he said to me, look, they're looking for a director of coaching in New York. So I didn't think the company would ever, I just didn't think it'd happen. And I spoke to Dean and I spoke to Bob. And they said, yeah, we'd want to offer you this position. Excellent CV, excellent experience, yada, yada, yada. Applied for it. Got my O1 visa, which again, never expected to get my O1 visa.
You had some amount of references on it, though.
Went for an interview, got refused my first interview in Belfast, said no. So 6 weeks later, went down to London, had one of the most amazing interviews with one of the most amazing ladies at the embassy. And it took a year. And the day I'd stopped looking, the next day I got the visa. I'd given up. I went to buy a house in South Africa, put in a tentative offer. Next day, I got the visa.
Jeez.
I'm surprised nobody in the world didn't hear me scream. I was just so delighted I got that visa. And 2 months later, I finally got out of here.
How have you found it so far?
Different.
Socially?
Different. A lot more expensive than it were when I was here 20 years ago. That's for sure. I love New York. I love New Jersey. I love the people that I've met. I love I love how the structure of the club is and how it's grown from what it was. There's so many different avenues you can coach kids from 6 months to 2 years of age, from 3 years to 5, from 6 to 11, from 12 to 18. And it's been tough because, again, I'll go back to the jigsaw. I'm that jigsaw piece at the moment that's trying to fit in to the organisation.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to work out, where I'm going to be ideally suited for the job because of my experience. Yeah. And there's a good bunch of people at the club. I'm still new to it, and I'm making mistakes. I'm making errors of judgment. I'm trying to find myself here at the moment. Obviously,
you're still finding your feet, though, aren't you?
I am.
You've sussed the buses out, which is more than I can say for me because I've not done it after 22 years.
I know the bus route like the back of my hand. I know
you've been to more concerts in the past 7 weeks that God knows.
I've been to more restaurants and bars and coffee places in New York and Manhattan and Brooklyn than probably lots of people in New York.
You definitely have more mates than me already.
I walk through Times Square every day, which is an absolute dream. I walk through Central Park probably 2-3 times a week. I've done over 500 miles in 7 weeks of walking.
You love that as well,
I
don't
love walking. Yeah, because you see so many things when you walk that you never see if you're on the subway.
What's one thing you've not got your head round yet?
Well, everybody's got a dog. Not many people say good morning when you walk by them, or even look you in the eye when you walk by them and give them a smile.
Did you not get that down south though when you went to Reading?
You do.
Anyone from up north who says hello,
you're just a northerner.
Just say hello, don't you?
Say hello. Yeah, just one of the things. Good morning. Good morning. Don't cost you anything.
Yeah.
And being on the subway, there's so many different cultures, so many different psychotic people that have got mental illnesses that, this morning I go on the subway, 4 gentlemen go on the boat. They must have been in the 70s. They started singing and they were brilliant. They could sing and they just go with the heart round. You give them a couple of bucks and, just that vibrancy of what New York is, what you see on TV, it's minute compared to what it is in real life.
Yeah.
I just think it's amazing. You see on the TV, it's nothing like you see on TV. I've been up the Empire State Building in '94 when I came for the World Cup, so I've done that. I want to go to the Dumbo. I want to go to the Brooklyn Bridge. I want to go and walk as far in and out of Central Park as I can. I like the east side. I like the west side. I love New Jersey. Jersey City, great little place to live. So where I am in Journal Square, I've got great access into town.
You got your bus pass.
I've got my bus pass, my elderly bus pass. Yeah, so it's like, it's hard going to work, going from the professional environment, from being a coach, being a head coach in the Premier Leagues of South Africa, in Kenya and Tanzania and in Vietnam. It's been hard to adjust to that. But give me a piece of grass, give me a piece of turf, give me a football and a few cones. I'm happy.
You find a way.
I'm happy. And I've been well received by the company. I've been well received by the parents. And that, again, that's always important that you have that relationship with parents.
Definitely.
Because they bring in their kids to have fun, to enjoy this game they call soccer.
Yeah. Talked about your mum being a massive influence. Obviously, your dad when you were a youngster as well. Who would be your biggest influences in football or friends that you've made through football? Like lads now you can, like, for example, you know, you need a bit of advice on something, or you just need a little bit of a coaching up or G'ing up, or like who are the people in your phone that you're giving a ring?
Howard, who's my mentor, who got me into professional football, made me become a coach because I loved his man management skills. I love what he got out of players. I'll speak to Strachan if I need to speak to Strachan. I always speak to my best mate, Buster. He's the one that keeps me, feet on the ground. He'll always make sense of things that I can't make sense of.
Buster's who?
Paul Keaton, my best mate. I've known him since, we've grown up together, really.
Yeah.
But Mick Hennigan, Howard's assistant at Leeds, him who got my career kick-started in South Africa.
Yeah.
He's got full-blown dementia, but when I speak to him, he remembers every single aspect of the game, especially where I am, what I'm doing. LinkedIn's a great tool to keep in with former professionals. Speak to Noel Blake quite a lot. When I go on courses with the SFA and the English FA, even though I've not coached in those countries, I'm kind of held on a really higher regard, because of what I've done in Africa and Asia. I kind of try and keep involved in what's going on in football because it's changing every week. There's always another rule, there's another way of playing, there's another formation, there's another tactic or a technical thing that's happening. So it's always good to be on top of that.
If you look back, you've looked back right so far, player and a coach, best part of 40 years. What would you hope players and fans remember you for?
That I enjoyed it. That I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed being part of what they were, football fans. I was a football fan when I was playing. I've got the stupidest celebration before Ravanelli stole it off me when I put the shirt over my head when I scored my first goal at Plymouth. Don't know why I did that. Did
you have the gear? Did you have the gear going on, like the abs and the?
I had the six-pack and everything. I was like, but I don't know why I did it. I just ran down this thing and I just put my shirt over my head, stuck my hands out, and it just stuck. But it's mine. I did it first. I knew I wasn't the best player. I knew Gary Speed were better than me. I knew David Batty, Gary McAllister. I knew all these players were better than me. But what they knew, what I could give them, was that belief, that realism that, hey, this kid wants to play. That the same at Sheffield Wednesday. If you ask Mel Sterling, you ask Gordon Strachan, you ask all these players that I played with, what I gave to them, I don't think there's a lot of players could have done that because I wanted to be part of that. I wanted part of that success. And there's an old saying that I'm on every photo that's got a cup or a thing. I am. But I was there. I was part of it. Didn't do it because I was asked to be there. Just don't jump in and like I was like
John Terry.
In the background. I was part of it. But it's long been a standing joke, or I'm always in the photos. I'm not in the photos because I want to be there. I'm in the photos because I am there.
You spoke a little bit about being proud of the way that you've held yourself, but is there a specific moment? Was there a point in your career where
winning the league at Reading was probably because I was a first teamer. I was playing most of the games. Signing my contract at Leeds after the disappointment of being released at Sheffield Wednesday, fighting back from injury, from being told I'd never play again when I signed for Kilmarnock. I think the fact that I give the joy to the supporters at each club. If you can imagine a dream that you've had for 47 years, actually it's a lot longer now, isn't it? I'm getting old. 52 years having a dream, and I'm still living it. I'm still looking for that one chance, that one opportunity to sit in front of a chairman, sit in front of a board, and give my 2 pence of what football club and our football club should be run, because I've done it, I've seen it, and it's been successful, and I know I can do it. And the ideology of football, which is scoring goals, which is getting results, which is winning games, and that's something that Howard Wilkinson instilled in me as a 16-year-old when I signed for Sheffield Wednesday. This game's about winning.
What advice are you giving to people like yourself who's travelled a lot, moved a lot through different jobs and different places? What advice are you giving to people who are moving to a new place to give something a go?
Blend into the culture, blend into the background, find out what people think and what people like, and enjoy it. And enjoy it, because you're gonna come across a lot of different cultures, a lot of different accents, a lot of different vocabularies. You're gonna learn a lot of languages, but don't say, oh, in England we do this, or in Scotland we do this, or in Britain we do this, because you're not there.
Yeah.
When you're overseas, you've got to adapt to how they are and how they work and how they live and how they breathe, because the cultures are so different. My first day at work when I came to America, I got told off because I made a comment, but other people take it differently.
Yeah, you've got to know,
and like you say,
you've got to know, haven't you?
It's just being a Yorkshireman. What did Jeff Boycott say? We say what we like, and we like what we bloody well say. So it's really different. When you see things, and in a lot of countries they haven't got the same sense of humour. Even though you think it's funny, they don't.
Yeah.
So any advice when you go overseas is, don't think you know everything, because in different countries they know more because it's their country. But just be honest. Just be honest and truthfully to yourself, and just go for it.
Well, thanks, mate. I really appreciate the time.
Sorry it's taken us till 10:30. Is that 10 or 11?
I think it's 11, but it's all right. But before you go, couple quick questions. Go-to karaoke song?
Depeche Mode, Just Can't Get Enough.
It's a good start. If you could go to one gig over again, which one would it be?
Depeche Mode in Berlin in 2023, 2019, Arizona 2005. I love Depeche Mode.
I was going to say, safe to say you like Depeche Mode.
I love Depeche Mode. I love Evan 17. My favourite singer's actually David Sylvian from Japan, but I never got to see Japan, but I've seen David Sylvian quite a few times. But I love music. I'm a music idiot, especially 80s. And look, if I could have gone to see this guy, Elvis Presley.
What's one Olympic sport that you seriously think you could do?
1,500 metres, 10,000 metres, 5,000 metres.
Show off, man, with the running. What about random Olympic sport?
Ooh.
It's well known that I'm good at archery, for example.
Oh, wow. To be fair, I would have loved to have done the Winter Olympics. I'd love to have done the luge, not the luge. What's the
ski jump?
The ski jump.
Eddie the Eagle over
I would have loved to have done that. I would have loved to do that.
Who's the first ex-teammate you're calling if you get stuck in a right pickle?
Probably Gary Holt at Kilmarnock.
Without question, without question, he'd come and get you. Yeah. Gary Holt. Yeah. All right. What would you have been if you weren't a footballer?
Honestly,
I thought you were going to say down the pit. Close enough.
I would. No, honestly, I wouldn't have a clue.
Who would play you in a movie?
Who would play me in a movie? Oh, crikey!
Sean Bean.
That's it. No, Sean Bean. Oh, who's the Scottish? Ewan McGregor. I'd have Ewan McGregor.
I'll give you that one. You've got to pick a five-a-side team. You don't have to be in it.
Okay.
Only players that you've played with.
Is that
would it just be the Leeds midfield four
as well?
Yeah, you got to have a goalie and four.
Right, so it would be Coisty up front, Cantona, Phil Parkinson, Shaka Hislop, and I'm going to surprise you now.
To be fair, you surprised me with Phil Parkinson, given you play with that Leeds midfield.
But Parky was just like
not saying he's a bad player. I'm just
I think the last one I'd probably play with would be Gordon Strachan.
Is he playing centre half? Because he's not winning much on corners, is he?
No.
All right, fair enough.
No.
Last question. Is Barnsley as mental as everyone says it is?
Yeah. What a nightlife. Barnsley's the best place in Yorkshire.
I've never been. I'm going to the one place if I go back to England now. I've got to go.
Doncaster, Sheffield, Manchester, Leeds. Amazing. But Barnsley's just Barnsley.
Dylan, thanks, mate. Appreciate it a lot.
Sorry,
Thank you very
went
much.
on and probably
Mate,
went
I
off
have
tangent.
no issue with this. I have no issue with it. I could talk to you all day about football.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you or someone you know has a story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us via our socials or visit www.crossingthepondpodcast.com to get in touch. Please be sure to subscribe, like, or leave a comment if you can. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Across Pond Podcasting.